Nathan's gloved hand hesitated for half a second before he offered the second cup. "You look freezing," he said to the woman huddled at the far end of the bench, her shoulders tucked deep into a coat clearly not built for February winds. "I got this for a friend who bailed, so—" He held it out awkwardly, the steam curling between them like an uncertain invitation. She blinked at him, lips chapped, eyes rimmed red from the cold, then, after the briefest pause, reached out with delicate fingers. "Thanks," she murmured, her voice soft but sure. "That's very kind of you." Nathan didn't expect gratitude. He certainly didn't expect to recognize her face 2 hours later in a corporate rejection email, beneath the signature of the CEO who had just turned him down for a job he'd prayed for. Her name was in bold, Jessica Langford, Chief Executive Officer, Langford Media Group. But in that moment, she was just a woman trying not to shiver too hard on a street bench outside a downtown cafe, and he was just a man trying to stretch $5 of kindness into something that felt like purpose. He sat beside her, not too close. The snow was fresh but already turning gray from the tread of morning commuters. She clutched the paper cup with both hands, lifting it close to her mouth like a secret she wasn't ready to share. "Rough morning?" he asked, trying to make conversation sound like concern, not pity. She gave a half smile. "Rough month, maybe longer." He nodded. "Same." From the side she looked polished beneath the exhaustion, sharp cheekbones, eyes that missed nothing even when half lowered, and posture that somehow betrayed both elegance and collapse. He didn't ask her name. She didn't offer it. Instead he added, "I'm Nathan. That little blur in the stroller over there is my daughter, Ava." She turned then, really looked, her expression softening at the sight of the bundled-up toddler playing with a toy giraffe. "She's beautiful. She's everything," he said simply. A long silence stretched between them, the kind that could break if either of them pushed too hard, but they didn't. Jessica Langford, though he didn't yet know her name, sat on that bench like someone trying to disappear without vanishing. Nathan sat beside her like someone who knew what it was to be invisible and had stopped resenting it a long time ago. She asked, "You always offer coffee to strangers?" He gave a dry chuckle. "Only on Tuesdays. It's Thursday. Then consider yourself lucky. A real smile this time, small but there." A real smile this time, small but there. She stood not long after that. "Thank you for the coffee," she said again, and walked off with the same quiet grace she'd sat down with. Like a gust of wind that didn't ask for permission. Nathan didn't expect to see her again. But later that afternoon, when Ava finally went down for her nap and Nathan sat down to check his email, there it was. A new message in his inbox, marked with the sleek gray and gold logo of Langford Media Group. He opened it with a flicker of hope still burning low in his chest. "Thank you for your application to Langford Media Group. While we appreciate your interest, we've decided to move forward with other candidates." He almost deleted it on the spot until his eyes fell to the bottom of the email. There, beside the formal closing, was a name he didn't recognize, but a face he did. Jessica Langford, CEO. The same sharp cheekbones. The same eyes that had watched Ava with a softness that didn't match the rest of her. The same woman he'd handed coffee to on a freezing bench just hours ago. Nathan stared at the screen, blinking. Not because he couldn't believe it, but because he suddenly could. The designer coat that hadn't looked quite right for the weather, the practiced way she'd smiled without showing too much, the silence that felt heavier than anything she'd said. He hadn't realized it at the time, but now it clicked like a puzzle falling into place. The woman he'd tried to help had just decided he wasn't good enough to help her, and yet somehow that didn't make him regret the coffee. It just made him wonder what the hell she was doing on that bench. Nathan didn't reply to the email. What was there to say? "Thanks for the rejection, by the way. Coffee was nice?" He sat in the quiet of his apartment long after the screen dimmed, Ava's soft breathing coming from the monitor on the side table. The place smelled faintly of reheated mac and cheese and baby shampoo. One sock was stuck to the arm of the couch. A plastic giraffe lay face down in a bowl of Cheerios on the floor. This was his world. And most days he loved it, even if it exhausted him. He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled. Somewhere between nap time and another round of dishes, it hit him just how absurd the moment had been. Of all the people to offer coffee to that morning, he had handed it to the woman who held his future in her perfectly manicured hands. A woman who, by noon, had already dismissed him with a single paragraph of sterile HR language and a bold signature. It should have stung more. But mostly, it just made everything feel smaller, tighter, like the space between where he was and where he wanted to be had just stretched another few miles. Nathan got up and started folding the laundry piled on the chair. That night, Jessica poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, the city glittering below her like someone else's dream. She opened her laptop, intending to finish the investor memo, but instead, she opened the internal applicant portal, her fingers moving almost unconsciously. She searched through the list of recently rejected candidates, not something she usually did, but the memory of that man on the bench, with kind eyes and worn gloves, wouldn't leave her. Most of the names were unfamiliar. Then she saw it. Nathan Cole, construction background, modest but solid experience. Applied for a media technician support role. She clicked the file out of instinct, not expectation. There it was. A brief paragraph where he'd mentioned balancing his schedule around caring for his toddler daughter, Ava. Ava. The name hit her like a slow-turning key in a lock. That was the name he'd said. That little blur in the stroller over there is my daughter, Ava. She stared at the screen, heartbeat rising. The man from the bench, with the warm voice and the coffee and the toddler in the stroller, had applied for a job at her company. And she'd rejected him, not personally, but still. She read through the resume again, this time with real attention. No fluff, no embellishments, just truth. The kind of truth that didn't try too hard to impress, and maybe, in that, said more than the rest. She closed the laptop and sat back for a moment, letting the weight of it all settle. Then, slowly, she reopened it. Typed his email into a blank message. Subject. About this morning. Just a few lines. A thank you for the coffee, a note that she'd be at the same cafe Friday morning if he felt like continuing the conversation. No pressure. Just a door left open. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Nathan didn't sleep much that night. He kept checking his phone, half expecting the email to vanish or be revealed as a prank. But there it was, simple and real. Jessica Langford, thanking him again, inviting him, casually, impossibly, to meet her again at the same cafe on Friday morning. He didn't know what to make of it. She hadn't mentioned the rejection. She hadn't explained how she connected the dots between a man handing her coffee and the name on an application. But she knew. Somehow she knew, and for some reason she still wanted to talk. By morning, Nathan was still undecided. He fed Ava oatmeal and let her fling tiny chunks of banana across the high chair tray, while his mind replayed every word of that email. He wasn't foolish. He knew this wasn't a job offer or some wild change of heart. She hadn't rewritten corporate policy overnight. She wasn't promising anything, but she had reached out. And maybe that was enough for now. At 9:52 a.m. on Friday, with Ava bundled into the stroller beside him, and his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, Nathan turned the corner onto Main and paused outside the cafe. The wind had softened, the sky pale but clear. A few early risers filled outdoor tables, sipping espresso and scrolling phones. But there she was, unmistakable, sitting alone on the same bench. Jessica Langford. This time she wasn't huddled or shivering. She looked composed, polished, her coat closed neatly, scarf folded just so. A to-go cup rested in her gloved hands, untouched. She glanced up before he said a word, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then she smiled, a small one, real but cautious, and nodded toward the empty space beside her. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," she said. Nathan sat down, slow and deliberate. Neither was I. Silence settled between them again. Not uncomfortable, just tentative. Jessica looked toward the stroller, where Ava blinked up at the sky, wholly uninterested in the grown-up conversation happening nearby. "She's even cuter in daylight," Jessica said. Nathan chuckled. "She's also louder. You're catching her during her polite phase." Jessica nodded. "Lucky me." She sipped her drink finally, and for a moment it felt like they were back on the same bench, in that same odd little pocket of calm between two storms. Nathan didn't push. He didn't ask about the email. He let her speak first. "I looked through the applicant list that night," Jessica said, her voice quieter than before. "It's not something I normally do, but I remembered what you said. Your daughter's name. Ava." Nathan nodded, waiting. "I saw your file," she continued, "and it hit me. Who you were. Who I just turned away." She didn't look at him when she said it. Just down at her cup, like the truth lived somewhere in the swirl of steam. "I wasn't upset," Nathan said gently. "Not even surprised. Disappointed, sure. But it's not personal, I know that." "But it is personal," she said, finally looking at him. "That's the problem. These decisions we make, they're always personal to someone. I think I forget that sometimes." Nathan gave a small shrug. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she said, "but maybe I owe myself something." That hung in the air a little longer than either of them expected. Ava began humming quietly to herself, swinging her legs. Jessica smiled at the sound. "She looks like you." "She has her mom's laugh, though," Nathan said, eyes softening. "That snort laugh? Totally inherited." Jessica's smile grew, almost involuntarily. "She's lucky." Nathan's jaw tightened just slightly. "She doesn't have her mom anymore." Jessica blinked. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. It's been 2 years," he said. "We're figuring it out." Jessica fell quiet again, not out of discomfort, more like reverence. She understood grief, maybe not the same flavor, but the weight, the silence it left in rooms and routines. "I wanted to say thank you," she said eventually. "For the coffee, for the unexpected moment of grace." Nathan tilted his head. "You were the one freezing on a bench. I didn't do much." "You did more than you think," she said. There was a pause. This one longer. Jessica shifted in her seat, suddenly unsure of herself. "I know this is strange," she added, "but I didn't reach out because of guilt or pity. I don't know. I wanted to." Nathan considered her. "Do you do that often? Reach out to strangers who bring you coffee?" She laughed, a real one this time, quick and dry. "Never." "Well," he said, "then I guess I should feel honored." She glanced at him, eyes sparkling for a brief second. "Don't push it." He smiled, more to himself than to her. There was something in the way she deflected, not sharp, not cold, just protective, like a door half closed but not locked. They sat there for a while, talking occasionally, pausing often. Nathan told her about his odd jobs, unclogging drains, fixing fences, whatever kept things going. She told him cautiously about her company, how public it was, how relentless. "Everyone thinks I have it together," she said. "They don't see the strings holding everything up." "Most strong things look messy up close," Nathan said. "Rope, yarn, people." Jessica looked at him. "You always talk like that?" "Only on Fridays." She smiled again, slower this time, like something melting. Nathan checked his watch. "Ava's about to declare war on this stroller if I don't get her moving." Jessica stood with him. "Can I walk with you?" He blinked. "Sure." They strolled down the block. Jessica walked a step behind the stroller, watching Ava wave at a pigeon like it was royalty. "You really do everything on your own?" she asked softly. "I've got a sister who helps when she can," Nathan said. "But yeah, most of it." Jessica was quiet. "That's a lot." "It's life," Nathan replied, "and she makes it worth it." They reached the crosswalk. Nathan stopped and looked at her. "Thanks for the invite," he said. "Thanks for accepting," she replied. He hesitated. "So, now what?" Jessica gave a small shrug. "Now nothing, or maybe something. I don't know." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "I'm not great at this," she admitted. "At what?" "Being curious without needing control," she said. Nathan smiled. Then let's keep it simple. No pressure, no expectations. Jessica exhaled. That would be nice. The light changed. Nathan gave a small wave. See you around, Jessica Langford. She watched him walk away, the stroller rolling gently ahead, Ava already humming again. Jessica stayed there a few moments longer, her hand tightening around the empty coffee cup. She didn't know what this was, or what it meant. But for the first time in weeks, maybe months, she didn't feel quite so cold. 3 days passed before he heard from her again. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, the kind that turned sidewalks into rivers and made everything feel heavier. Nathan was halfway through resealing a drafty window for a landlord who promised cash under the table when his phone buzzed. Jessica Langford. The name still felt surreal every time it popped up. Not because she was famous, she wasn't exactly, but because of how improbable all of it was. The bench, the coffee, the second meeting, and now this. He let it sit until he finished the job. Pride, maybe, or just habit. He wasn't the type to drop a wrench for a message. When he finally opened it, it was short, direct, subject, opportunity. Nathan, I've been thinking. We have a community space under Langford Cares, one of our outreach arms. The building needs some repairs, the kind of work you're good at. It's not glamorous, and I'm not offering it because I pity you. I just thought, maybe you'd want to be part of something that matters. If you're interested, let me know. Jessica, no job title, no attachments, no strings, just a door cracked open. Nathan read it twice, then again. He didn't know what to feel. It wasn't the job he'd applied for. The media tech role with health insurance and maybe a corner to grow into. This was maintenance, manual, physical, probably temporary. But it was work. Honest work. And somehow it felt more personal than the other offer ever had. Still, he hesitated. That night, after Ava went down, he sat at the kitchen table staring at his reflection in a glass of water. He thought about the last few years, how quickly life had narrowed, how grief had changed the shape of every plan he once had. He'd been good with computers. That was supposed to be his pivot, out of construction into something stable. But interviews were rare, and rejections were steady. Most days survival mattered more than trajectory. He picked up his phone. Thumb hovered over the reply button. He didn't want a favor, but this didn't feel like one. So he typed back, I'm in. Just tell me where to be. The next morning, Jessica sent him the address. A 3-story brick building on the edge of Midtown. Not flashy, but solid. It used to be a youth center, she said, before years of funding cuts turned it into a storage space with broken plumbing and flickering lights. Langford Cares had acquired it 2 months ago with plans to reopen it as a neighborhood hub. Classes, job training, after-school programs. All the stuff companies said they cared about, but rarely invested in. Jessica did. She met him at the door the first day, wearing jeans and a navy blazer, clipboard in hand. No scarf, no heels. She looked more relaxed, but still like someone used to being listened to. Morning, she said. Nathan nodded, wiping rain from his neck. You always supervise in person? She smirked. Only when I think the guy might run. I don't run, he said. I just walk away quietly if it's awful. Fair enough. She led him inside. The air smelled like dust and dry paint. The overhead lights hummed. Jessica walked him through the space, the scuffed gym floor, the broken shelving in the community pantry, the wiring that hadn't been updated since the 80s. Nathan listened, took notes, asked the kind of questions that told her he actually cared about doing it right. They fell into a rhythm. Each morning, he showed up with tools and a thermos of coffee. Sometimes Ava tagged along for the first hour, bouncing in her portable playpen until his sister could pick her up. Jessica always said hello to Ava first, crouching down to her level, letting her grab at her necklace or babble nonsense like it was gospel. It made something tighten in Nathan's chest, not painful, but unexpected. He hadn't realized how starved he was for simple kindness. After the first week, they stopped pretending it was just business. They started talking during lunch breaks, slow, easy conversations that drifted without aim. Nathan told her about fixing up houses with his dad as a teenager. Jessica talked about volunteering at a shelter during college, back when her name didn't carry weight and her decisions didn't ripple through boardrooms. He noticed how she still carried herself like someone who had something to prove. Even now, when she'd already built an empire, she noticed how his voice changed when he talked about Ava, lighter, warmer, like the world made more sense when she was in it. They didn't flirt, not really. But something flickered in the space between them. A look held a beat longer, a shared laugh that lingered, an unspoken awareness that maybe, just maybe, they were each carrying something the other understood. On Thursday, Nathan replaced the old door in the back hallway. It had swollen from years of water damage, stuck so badly that staff had been using a window to access the storage room. He called out, "You want to test this?" Jessica appeared a moment later, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair loosely pinned. She pushed the door gently. It swung open like it was born to. "Perfect," she said. Nathan grinned. "Even got it to stop squeaking." "That's sorcery. Or WD-40, close second." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You like it here?" Nathan hesitated. "Yeah, I do. It's not what I thought I'd be doing, but it feels like it matters." "It does," she said. "And you do good work." He glanced at her. Wasn't expecting praise from the CEO. "I'm not the CEO here," she said softly. "Just someone who believes in this place." Nathan nodded. "It shows." She held his gaze a little too long before looking away. Something settled between them then, not romantic, not yet, but real, like two people starting to believe in something they hadn't dared to name. That evening, as he packed up his tools, Jessica lingered by the door. "I'll be here early tomorrow," she said. "Want to grab coffee before we start?" Nathan paused, then smiled. "Only if it's Tuesday." She raised an eyebrow. "It's Friday." "Then consider yourself lucky," she laughed, remembering that first morning, the cold, the bench, how far they'd come in such a short, strange time. She waved and stepped out into the dusk, the air cool but not biting. Nathan watched her go, then turned back to the building, suddenly unsure what felt more solid, the structure he was fixing or the thing quietly growing between them. By the second week, Jessica wasn't just dropping by to check on the project. She was staying, not the entire day. She had a company to run, meetings to attend, a team that relied on her. But she kept carving out more time at the community center. A couple of hours in the morning, sometimes a longer stretch in the afternoon when she could pretend her phone wasn't buzzing in her bag. She said it was to make sure everything stayed on track. That was partly true, but the other part, the quieter, more honest part, had less to do with baseboards and wiring and more to do with the way Nathan made the place feel different when he was in it. He worked without needing to prove anything. He fixed things because they were broken, not because anyone was watching. And he spoke to the janitor the same way he spoke to her, with steady, quiet respect. Jessica had grown used to rooms full of people performing, posturing, always posturing. But Nathan didn't perform. He didn't even seem to notice if he was being evaluated, which made her wonder how many people had overlooked him for all the wrong reasons. That morning, she found him in the main rec room, gently replacing the warped tile beneath the old piano. "I didn't even know we had a piano," she said, stepping inside. Nathan looked up from where he crouched, prying up an old plank with a crowbar. "Technically, it's more like a large wooden box that used to sound like a piano." Jessica grinned. "You planning to fix that too?" "If I have time," he said. "But right now, I just want the floor to stop trying to eat people." She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe, watching him. "You always care this much?" He gave a small shrug. "It's a community space. The people coming in here, they already have enough working against them. The least I can do is make sure they don't trip on the way in." Jessica's gaze softened. She hadn't told him this, but her mother used to volunteer in places like this. Back before Langford Media was anything more than a pipe dream, her mom had believed in spaces that welcomed everyone, that made people feel safe, that fed them, not just food, but dignity. Jessica hadn't thought about her mother in that way for a long time, but something about Nathan made it all come rushing back. She stayed longer than she meant to, long enough that Nathan glanced up at one point and raised an eyebrow. "Don't you have a building full of executives somewhere wondering where you are?" Jessica blinked, then smiled. "Probably, but I told them I was in a meeting. Technically, that's not a lie." "Nope," she said. "This just happens to be the only meeting today where someone's being honest." Nathan laughed, and it lit something in her chest. Not attraction exactly, not yet, but warmth, familiarity, the quiet ache of something good sneaking up on her. Later that week, a small moment changed everything. They were in the supply room. She was helping him reorganize the donated tools, stacking dusty boxes on newly installed shelves. The space was tight, light streaming in through the narrow window in soft stripes. Nathan passed her a box, and for a moment their hands touched, barely. But it was enough. Something sparked. A current, brief, but electric. She looked up, and he looked back, not startled, but still. Like they both felt it and didn't know what to do with it. Neither of them said anything. Jessica handed him the box and turned away to grab the next one. But the air between them had shifted. Subtle. Charged. The next morning she brought breakfast. Just bagels and coffee, nothing extravagant. But Nathan looked surprised anyway when she walked in holding the brown paper bag like a peace offering. "You bribing your labor now?" he asked. Jessica shrugged. "Call it a gesture." He smiled. "What kind?" She paused, then said softly, "A grateful one." They sat on the steps outside and ate together in the morning light. Ava was already with Nathan's sister that day, so for once it was quiet, peaceful. They talked about things that didn't matter, or maybe they did. Childhood cartoons, favorite sandwiches, weird allergies. The kind of conversation that didn't serve a purpose other than connection. Jessica found herself laughing more. Nathan noticed how easily she deflected serious questions, how fast she was to change the subject when it drifted too close to her personal life. But he didn't push, and that too was a kind of intimacy. The spark wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden. It came in glances, in the way her voice softened when she asked about Ava, in the way he reached for the hammer like it was second nature, and then made her laugh with a bad pun before he used it. It came in the quiet between words, the silence that didn't feel empty, and in that space something unspoken began to grow. Not just admiration, not just gratitude. Something deeper. Something that felt like the beginning of a door slowly opening inside both of them. One day, on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, Nathan had just finished reinforcing the shelves in the main pantry, the kind of slow, satisfying work that calmed his thoughts. Jessica had spent most of the morning upstairs on conference calls, and the building had taken on that familiar hush, the sound of potential not yet in use. He was cleaning up when she appeared in the doorway, her blazer folded over one arm, her usually tidy hair looser than normal. "I need air," she said. No explanation. Nathan didn't ask questions. He wiped his hands on a rag, grabbed his thermos, and followed her outside. They walked in silence for a few minutes, past the edge of the parking lot, toward the small green space behind the building. It wasn't much, a patch of grass, a few benches, a view of the back alley. But it was quiet, and right now, that was enough. Jessica sat first. Nathan took the other end of the bench. She didn't look at him. "Do you ever feel like people only see the version of you that's useful to them?" she asked suddenly. Nathan didn't answer right away. He sipped his coffee, then said, "All the time." Jessica exhaled, not quite a laugh. "I thought maybe that was just a CEO thing." "No," he said gently. "It's a single-parent thing, a working-class thing, a human thing." She glanced at him, eyes shaded but sharp. "I wasn't always this put together, you know." He didn't interrupt. "My mom used to tell me to walk like you own the room, even if your shoes are falling apart." Jessica smiled faintly. She worked nights, cleaned offices, always came home with her hands raw from bleach. but she'd still iron my clothes in the morning so I could feel like I mattered. Nathan nodded slowly. She sounds like someone worth remembering. She was, Jessica said. She passed away my senior year of college. Cancer. Quick and cruel. I'm sorry, Nathan said, his voice low. Jessica looked at her hands. She never saw any of this, the company, the office, the skyline view, but sometimes I think, maybe that's better. He tilted his head. Why? Jessica hesitated. Because I'm not sure she'd recognize me in it. The words hung there, heavy and unpolished. Nathan let them sit. She used to call me her little thunderstorm, Jessica added, a hint of a smile returning. Said I had too many opinions and not enough patience. That tracks. She laughed, genuinely. I got older and learned to sand it all down, make myself easier to work with, easier to like. And easier to forget? Nathan asked softly. Jessica turned her head toward him. Sometimes, yeah. The wind picked up just enough to rustle the edge of her shirt. I was engaged once, she said. 2 years ago, a lawyer. Met through mutual friends. He was kind, stable, liked that I was ambitious. But he liked the idea of me more than the reality. He said I was difficult to relax around, like I was too sharp. Were you in love? I wanted to be, she said. He proposed with the right ring, the right speech. My PR team had already drafted the announcement. Nathan winced. That sounds cold. It wasn't cold, she said. It was curated, like everything else. And you said no? I said yes, Jessica admitted. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, I packed a bag and left the country for 6 days. No call, no note, just gone. Nathan stared at her. You ghosted your fiancé? Technically, I ghosted everyone, she said. I went to Vienna, stayed in a hotel where no one knew my name, spent hours walking around listening to music I didn't understand. What happened when you came back? Jessica stared out toward the alley. He'd canceled the wedding, quietly, respectfully. I never blamed him. Because he wasn't really in love with you either, Nathan said. Jessica nodded. Just with the version of me I sold to the world. Silence again. Nathan leaned forward, elbows on knees. You ever wish you could go back to who you were before all of it? Jessica was quiet. Then, not really. I just wish I didn't have to pretend so much to survive it. She looked at him, and for the first time her eyes weren't guarded. They were tired, clear. Nathan met her gaze. You don't have to pretend here, he said. Jessica studied him for a long second, then smiled, not with her lips, but with something deeper, like a door cracking open in a long-closed room. I know, she said. They sat there a while longer, not speaking, not touching, just existing beside each other, two people who had carried too much for too long, finally resting in the presence of someone who understood. A few days later, they were cleaning out the art supply closet, a cluttered room filled with old crayons, dried-out glue sticks, and poster boards that had been curling at the edges since 2013. Jessica had found a bin of finger paints and was holding it like a biohazard when she turned to him. Did Ava get your sense of humor? She asked, half laughing. Or was her mom funny too? Nathan didn't answer right away. He set down the stapler he'd been testing and rubbed his palms against his jeans. He didn't usually talk about Lindsay, not in detail, not with people outside of Ava or his sister. The world had moved on too fast. A funeral, a few casseroles, some kind texts, and then silence. But Jessica hadn't asked to be let in. She just stood there, patient, holding a question like someone who understood there might be more underneath. So he spoke. She was funnier than me, Nathan said finally, his voice low. Not loud funny, just clever, the kind of person who could say one thing and have you thinking about it for 3 days. Jessica said nothing. She just set the paint bin down, took a quiet step closer, and leaned against the wall, giving him space to continue. She loved old sitcoms, he said. I love Lucy, Cheers, Fresh Prince. She said laughter was the only part of childhood she got to keep. He smiled to himself. She had this laugh, high-pitched, almost ridiculous. She hated it, said it made her sound like a goose, but I lived for it. He paused. We met at a DIY workshop. I was helping a friend teach a weekend class on home repairs. She came in wearing heels and red lipstick and asked where the fun tools were. I handed her a crowbar and said, "Careful, that one bites." She laughed and told me I was probably an idiot. Jessica smiled. "That sounds about right." "She gave me her number anyway," he said, voice quieter now. "Said she'd call if the crowbar didn't kill her." He looked down at his hands, then up again. "We weren't perfect. We fought. She was messy, I was stubborn, but we made each other better, or we were trying to." Another pause. "She got sick right after Ava turned one. One of those things you never see coming. She thought it was the flu at first, but it wasn't." Jessica's face softened, the light in her eyes dimming just slightly. "It moved fast," Nathan said. "Doctors didn't have good answers. 3 months later, she was gone." Silence. "I didn't have time to panic," he added. "There were diapers to change, appointments to reschedule, people to call, and Ava. She didn't understand. She just kept looking toward the door like her mom would walk through it any minute." He swallowed. "I think part of me did, too." Jessica took a small step closer. "I'm so sorry, Nathan," she said, her voice gentle but steady. "That's more than anyone should have to carry alone." "I wasn't alone, not really," he said. "My sister moved in for a while. Friends tried. But grief has this way of shrinking your world. You forget how to ask for help. And eventually, people stop offering." He looked up at her, and his eyes were red, not from crying, but from holding back the effort it took not to. "Ava kept me going. Still does. Every time I thought I might disappear. She needed cereal, or a story, or a diaper change, and just like that I was still here." Jessica stepped beside him now, not touching, just standing close enough to let the moment settle without shattering. "You're strong," she said. "No," he replied. "I'm just stubborn." She smiled. "Sometimes that's the same thing." They didn't talk much for the rest of the day, but the silence wasn't awkward. It was sacred, the kind of quiet that follows something deeply shared, something that shifts the weight between two people. Jessica worked beside him in the pantry, labeling bins and organizing shelves. Nathan kept busy with a cabinet that needed new hinges. They didn't need to speak. They had said what mattered. That night, after the sun dipped low and the last light fell through the stained glass window in the old reading nook, Jessica finally gathered her things to leave. She paused by the door. "I don't know how to say this," she said, "so I'll just say it. I'm glad you told me. About her." Nathan looked up, tired but open. "I'm glad you asked," she nodded. "Most people think CEOs don't care about stories. Just numbers." He shrugged. "Most people don't see CEOs picking up finger paint." Jessica laughed quietly, then stepped out into the evening air. The next morning, Nathan woke up to Ava standing by his bed in superhero pajamas, one sock missing and a toothbrush in her hand like a wand. "Can I wear my cape to daycare?" she asked. "Only if I can wear mine to work," he mumbled. Ava considered this. "Deal." They got ready slowly. Nathan poured cereal while Ava lectured her stuffed giraffe on the importance of bravery. He checked his email. Nothing urgent, no new job leads, just the usual. But for the first time in months, it didn't feel like failure. He was working, contributing, living. And he'd told someone the story that still lived beneath his skin, the one he usually protected like a fragile heirloom. And she hadn't flinched. That mattered. Jessica sat in her car longer than usual before heading into the Langford Cares building. She hadn't expected Nathan's story to sit with her the way it did, but it clung to her thoughts, not in a painful way, but in a way that made her aware of her own armor. She realized, as she adjusted her blazer and touched up her lipstick in the mirror, that she wanted to be seen by him the same way he had just let her see him, fully, without polish, without performance. It scared her. But it also made her feel more like herself than she had in years. Later that day, while reorganizing the lobby brochure display, Nathan held one up and asked, "Did you write this mission statement?" Jessica glanced over. Which one? He read aloud. Empowerment begins with belonging, a place where everyone matters and everyone is seen. She paused, then said, Yes, that one's mine. Nathan folded it and tucked it back into the stand. You meant it when you wrote it, didn't you? Every word, he smiled. Then maybe that's why this place is starting to feel like home. Their eyes met again, longer this time. Then one day, a headline changed everything. Not on a major network, not yet. Just a mid-level media blog that specialized in polished gossip about high-profile executives. A photo, slightly grainy, taken from a distance, showed Jessica Langford walking beside a man in a plain jacket, sleeves rolled, pushing a stroller. Langford CEO seen strolling with mystery man at Outreach Center. Is it love or optics? Jessica saw it at 6:47 a.m., just before her second meeting of the day. She clicked it open, already expecting the worst. The article itself was vague, thin on facts, heavy on speculation. But it was enough. Enough to spark curiosity. Enough to shift attention. Enough to be a problem. Her father called before she could finish reading it. You need to shut this down, he said, voice clipped and cold. Immediately. Jessica bristled. There's nothing to shut down. Then why are you being photographed with a maintenance worker and his kid outside one of our own properties? Because he works for us, and he's good at what he does. You know this isn't about what he does, her father snapped. It's about what it looks like. Jessica stared out the window of her car, gripping the steering wheel. He's a single dad. He's decent. And this is none of your business. It becomes my business when you start tanking shareholder confidence with your personal entanglements. She hung up. There was nothing else to say. Nathan didn't know about the article at first. That morning, he was at the center by 8:30, replacing the cracked mirror in the kids' bathroom. He'd brought Ava with him for a bit before his sister could pick her up. She sat cross-legged in the hallway, humming and drawing on the back of a supply order form with a pink crayon. He looked out the window more than once, waiting for Jessica's car. She usually arrived by now, but the parking lot stayed empty. By noon, he figured she was stuck in meetings, or maybe sick, or maybe, and here the thought edged in with quiet dread. Maybe something had shifted. He didn't want to assume. He didn't want to worry. But he knew what it felt like when someone started backing away, slow, deliberate, without warning. Jessica stayed away for 3 days. She told herself it was for the company, the optics, the board. She told herself Nathan would understand, that he'd know this wasn't personal, even though every part of it felt exactly that. The truth was, she was scared. Not of him, of how quickly he'd become part of her days, of how natural it felt to talk to him, to show up at that center like it mattered more than the floor beneath her office. But now people were watching, speculating. Her father had begun whispering doubts into the ears of shareholders. PR had flagged the situation as low-grade reputational risk. One advisor had even suggested she put out a statement denying any connection. She hadn't responded, because denying it would mean admitting it mattered. And it did. On Friday afternoon, she finally showed up. Nathan was outside repainting the center's welcome sign. The original lettering had faded into near invisibility, and he thought it deserved better. Ava was at daycare, and the day was unusually bright for late February. He saw her the moment she stepped out of her car. She wore her usual armor, dark coat, heels, hair pinned with clinical precision. But her face was tired. He stood, brush still in hand. "Hey," he said simply. Jessica hesitated, then nodded. "Got a minute?" she asked. Nathan didn't speak. He set the paintbrush aside and wiped his hands on a towel, then followed her to the side of the building, where the trees offered a little privacy from the world. She turned to face him, arms crossed, not out of anger, but self-defense. "There's been press," she said. "Photos. Comments." "I figured something happened," he said. "You don't disappear like that unless something's burning." Jessica gave a bitter laugh. "Everything's always burning." Nathan didn't reply. She looked at him then, really looked. "I can't be careless with my image," she said. "Not with what I represent? Not with what I've built." Nathan's jaw clenched just slightly. "I'm not asking for anything from you." "I know," she said. "That's what makes this harder." There was a long pause. Then Nathan asked, "So what is this then?" Jessica looked down. "I think I need some space," she said, voice quieter now. "Just until things settle." Nathan nodded slowly. "Okay." She blinked. "That's it?" "What else is there?" he said, voice calm. "I don't beg. I don't guilt people. You need space, I'll give it. I just wish it didn't come with silence." Jessica stepped forward, suddenly unsure. "This isn't about you, it's always about something bigger, isn't it?" he said. "But somehow I'm always the part that gets cut." That landed harder than she expected. She swallowed. "I'm trying to protect the work, the center, you." He shook his head. "I never asked to be protected." "I know," she whispered. Then, for a moment, they just stood there. All the closeness, the warmth, the gentle growth of the past weeks suddenly frozen in place. Jessica turned to go, then stopped. "I'm sorry," she said. "I really am." Nathan didn't say it back. He just watched her walk away. The next day she found a small envelope on her office desk at the center. No note, just her name in simple handwriting. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, a sketch drawn by Ava. It showed Jessica standing outside the community center, one hand holding a coffee cup, the other resting on Ava's tiny shoulder. There was something peaceful about it, something that said, "I saw you. I see you still." Jessica sat down and stared at it for a long time. She didn't cry, but she didn't move either. Nathan didn't hear from her the next week. He didn't expect to. He kept working at the center, but only when scheduled. He stopped lingering, stopped waiting for her to walk through the door with that soft smile and guarded eyes. He cooked dinner, brushed Ava's hair, folded laundry, paid bills. Life didn't pause just because something hurt. But sometimes, when Ava was asleep and the house was quiet, he found himself staring at that spot by the trees where she'd asked for space. He wasn't angry, he just felt empty, and that somehow was worse. Jessica didn't expect to miss him. Not like this, not in the subtle, inconvenient ways that crept into her day when she was trying to focus on press statements and board calls and investor reports. Not when she was sitting in a meeting and someone mentioned the outreach center, and her first thought wasn't of budgets or square footage, but of the way Nathan always wore his tool belt crooked and whistled off-key when he thought no one could hear. She had convinced herself this space was temporary, necessary, strategic, but each passing day didn't bring relief. It brought a heavier kind of quiet. And the sketch he'd left behind, the one with Ava's bright crayon lines and Jessica's hand resting gently on the child's shoulder, stayed folded in her drawer like a heartbeat. She'd tried putting it away, out of sight. But every time she opened that drawer, it called to her, not loudly, just honestly. She hadn't written back, hadn't said thank you. She didn't know how. The words wouldn't come, not in the way she needed them to. Nathan didn't expect to feel angry, but some nights it showed up anyway. Not loud, not messy, just quiet questions that looped in his chest after Ava fell asleep. Why was he always the one to end up alone? He didn't have answers. He just had a steady routine, a little girl who still asked when Miss Jessica was coming back, and a deep ache that throbbed more than he'd let on. He didn't blame her, not really. He understood pressure. He understood sacrifice. But what hurt was that she hadn't even given him the decency of a real goodbye, so he didn't text, didn't call, didn't wait. Instead, he started packing up his tools for what he figured might be the last time. His contract at the outreach center was just about finished. Most of the repairs were done. The final pantry shelves had been installed, the back fence painted, the wiring passed inspection. There was 1 week left, maybe less. And then he'd be gone. Just another worker who came and went. But Nathan didn't leave without saying something. He just chose to say it in his own way. One night, after putting Ava to bed, he stayed up sketching. He'd always been good with pencil and paper. Lindsay used to joke that he missed his calling as a children's book illustrator. After she passed, he hadn't picked up a pencil for a long time. It felt too tender, too exposed. But now, with the house still and the ache too much to ignore, he let his hands move. He sketched the community center, not as it looked, but as it felt, warm, alive. He drew the rec room lit with soft light, paper cranes hanging from the ceiling, kids playing with building blocks. He sketched Jessica, not in heels and blazer but in jeans and her rolled-up sleeves, crouched beside a little girl holding a marker. He drew Ava too, smiling, pointing at something no one else could see, and Nathan, in the corner, just barely in the frame, present but not spotlighted, watching. He added a few words in the bottom corner. Sometimes the places we fix us too. The next day, he slipped it into a folder and left it on her office desk. No name, no message, just the drawing, just the truth. Jessica didn't see it until the following morning. She had returned to the center reluctantly after nearly 2 weeks away, told herself it was to check on progress, reassure the board, regain control. But the truth? She missed it. The space, the quiet, the feeling. Him. She stepped into her office expecting dust and silence. Instead, she found the folder, and inside, the drawing. She sat slowly, fingers grazing the paper like it might vanish if she moved too fast. The image wasn't polished, it wasn't branded or designed, but it was full, of life, of detail, of something far more real than anything on her website. She stared at her own face, softer than she thought she appeared. The curve of her spine as she knelt beside a child. The easy comfort in the line of her shoulders. It was how he saw her, not as a CEO, not as a symbol, but as a person. Jessica's throat tightened. She read the words in the corner. Sometimes, the places we fix us too. She read them again, and again. Then pressed the drawing to her chest and closed her eyes. She found him 3 days later, his last day at the center. He was locking up the tool cabinet when he saw her reflection in the glass. He turned slowly. Jessica stood just inside the door, her coat half unbuttoned, eyes unreadable. "I was going to frame it," she said softly. Nathan didn't speak. "I couldn't," she continued, "because every time I looked at it, I felt like I hadn't earned it." "You don't have to earn kindness," he said. She stepped closer. "You didn't have to leave that for me." "Thank you anyway," she whispered. They stood in the quiet, facing each other, all the things between them unsaid but undeniable. Jessica looked down. "I wasn't fair to you." "You did what you thought you had to," he replied. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you, just of what it would mean to let something matter again." Nathan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." She looked at him now, eyes steady. "And I was wrong, about thinking I could walk away without it costing me something." His jaw tightened, not with anger, but with restraint. "It mattered to me too," he said. They stood there a moment longer. Then she held out her hand. Not for a shake, not formally, just offering it. He took it, warm, steady, the kind of grip that said, "I'm still here if you are." On a Saturday morning, the sun was starting to make promises. Nathan had just finished washing the dishes from breakfast, Ava perched at the kitchen table coloring with intense focus, when there was a knock at the door. 3 short, unsure taps. He dried his hands slowly, more out of habit than suspicion. He wasn't expecting anyone. His sister had taken the morning off, and the handyman gig he was picking up later didn't start until noon. The knock came again, softer this time. He opened the door. Jessica Langford stood on his porch, no coat, no entourage, no heels, just jeans, boots, and a soft sweater that looked nothing like her usual armor. Her hair was windblown, her eyes uncertain, and in her hands, a small paper bag. Nathan didn't say anything at first, he just stared. Jessica shifted on her feet. "It's cinnamon rolls," she said. "From that place you mentioned, the one near 3rd and Alcott." He looked at the bag, then back at her. "I thought you didn't like carbs," he said. "I don't," she said. "But I like fixing things more." He let out a quiet breath. "You came all the way here for breakfast?" She shook her head. "I came here for something honest. Behind him, Ava's voice rang out, clear and unfiltered. "Who is it?" Jessica's smile cracked open. Real, nervous, fragile. "May I come in?" Nathan hesitated only a second, then stepped aside. The living room wasn't large, but it was warm. Lived in. Toys tucked into baskets, books on low shelves, sunlight spilling in through a half-open curtain. Jessica paused just inside the doorway. She looked out of place, not because of how she was dressed, but because of how carefully she held herself, like someone afraid of breaking something important. Ava peeked around the corner, holding a marker in one hand and a sock in the other. She lit up. "Miss Jessica." Jessica knelt down instinctively. "Hi, Ava." "You disappeared," Ava said bluntly. Jessica's voice caught. "I did. Daddy said sometimes people get scared and run away." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Did he?" Ava nodded proudly. "But you came back, so it's okay." Then she turned and disappeared just as quickly, leaving a stunned silence behind her. Jessica looked at Nathan. She's honest. She doesn't know how not to be. They stood in that silence a moment. Then Nathan motioned to the kitchen. "You want coffee?" Jessica followed him. "More than you know." They sat at the table, the same one where Nathan sorted bills, helped with preschool crafts, and spent most nights alone with quiet thoughts and reheated leftovers. The cinnamon rolls sat between them, untouched for a while. Jessica wrapped her fingers around the mug and exhaled slowly. "I stepped back," she said. Nathan glanced up. "From what?" "Langford Media. I'm taking a leave." He blinked. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." He waited. "I needed air," she said. "Not just from the press or the pressure, but from the part of myself that couldn't breathe anymore." He studied her. "What changed?" Jessica hesitated. "You left me that sketch. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't guilt me. You just showed me what I was walking away from." He looked down at the table. "I kept telling myself I couldn't afford to be seen with you," she said. "That being with you made me vulnerable. But the truth is, it made me real." Her voice wavered just slightly. "And I think I want real now." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Why today?" Jessica smiled faintly. "Because I finally stopped running in the wrong direction." He looked at her, something shifting in his chest. "And what about you?" she asked gently. "What happens now?" Nathan took a slow breath. "I don't know," he said honestly. "There's always another gig, another repair, another job posting that I send into the void." Jessica hesitated. What if there didn't have to be? He glanced at her. "I've been thinking about what comes next," she said. "For me, for this community, for what Langford Cares could really become if it wasn't just an extension of the brand." She leaned forward. "I want to build something that matters, and I don't want to do it alone." Nathan held her gaze. "You offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a seat at the table," she said. "No title, no pitch, just a place beside me if you want it." He didn't answer right away. Ava peeked in again and broke the moment. "Daddy, can we show her the garden?" Nathan smiled. "Sure, kiddo. Let's give her the tour." The garden wasn't much, just a few raised beds in the backyard, tomatoes, peppers, some herbs that Lindsay had planted years ago, still coming back each spring out of pure stubbornness. But Ava loved it. She dragged Jessica out by the hand and pointed to each patch with the authority of a botanist. Jessica crouched, asked questions, admired leaves with great seriousness. Nathan stood a few feet back, arms crossed, watching them both. Something warm flickered in his chest. Not relief, not triumph, something older, something hopeful. When Ava ran off to fetch her watering can, Jessica stood and looked at him. "I'm not asking to step into your life just to fix it," she said. "I know that's not what you need." He nodded slowly. "I just want to show up, even if it's messy, even if I screw it up sometimes." He stepped closer. "And if I say yes?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Then we figure it out, day by day." Nathan looked down at the soil, then at her. And for the first time since that cold morning on the bench, he felt the ground beneath his feet shift, in a way that didn't scare him. He reached out, took her hand. Not tightly, not urgently, just enough. It was a Sunday morning, the kind where the city moved a little slower, as if the world had collectively decided to breathe before Monday swallowed it whole. The cafe on Main was still there, same chipped blue trim, same crooked chalkboard sign promising the best scones in town, a claim Nathan had always suspected was a lie, but endearing nonetheless. He stood across the street, one hand on the stroller handle, the other tucked in his jacket pocket. Ava sat inside the stroller, older now, a little taller, a little louder, her curls spilling out from beneath a yellow knit cap. And beside him, Jessica, dressed in soft gray and dark denim. No heels, no sharp corners, just her. They crossed when the light changed, Ava humming some made-up song about clouds and juice boxes. Jessica looked around, nostalgia softening the edges of her face. "I forgot how cold it was that day," she said. Nathan smirked. "You looked like you regretted every life decision that led you to that bench." "I was having a breakdown in slow motion," she said. "You handed me caffeine like a man trying to defuse a bomb." He laughed. "To be fair, you didn't exactly look approachable. I didn't feel human." They reached the bench. It was still there. The same slatted wood, the same rusted bolts. Someone had scraped initials into the side since they'd last been here. Nathan motioned toward it. "Shall we?" Jessica sat first, brushing a few leaves off the seat. Ava clambered up beside her, swinging her legs with theatrical flair. Nathan returned a few minutes later from the cafe, balancing 3 drinks, 2 coffees, 1 chocolate milk. He passed the milk to Ava, who immediately tried to blow bubbles through the straw. Then he handed 1 cup to Jessica. "Only on Tuesdays," he said. She smiled. "Still Thursday." "Then consider yourself lucky." The words landed with a warmth that wrapped around all 3 of them. They sat in silence for a while, not awkward, just full. Jessica sipped her coffee slowly, eyes on the street. Nathan watched Ava lean back, arms spread across the bench like she owned it. There was something poetic about that, how the spot that began with cold and distance was now wrapped in warmth and ease. Jessica turned to him. "Do you ever think about how random it was?" she asked. "That moment, that bench, that coffee." Nathan shrugged. "I try not to overthink things that felt right." She nodded. "Still feels right." Ava finished her drink and looked up. "Can we get a cookie?" Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Did you finish your eggs this morning?" Ava grinned. "No, but I almost did." Nathan shook his head. "She negotiates like a lawyer." "I wonder where she gets it," Jessica said dryly. Ava jumped off the bench, already walking toward the cafe window. Nathan followed a few steps behind. Jessica hung back. She let the sun warm her face for a moment, closed her eyes, breathed in the coffee, the city, the sound of Ava giggling through the glass. When she opened her eyes again, Nathan was watching her. "What?" she asked. He shrugged. "You look peaceful." Jessica laughed softly. "That's new." "Good new?" She nodded. "The best kind." They stood side by side now, both leaning slightly against the bench. Jessica looked at him. "You know, I used to think love had to look like something big, dramatic, almost theatrical. And now? Now I think it looks like showing up," she said, "like coffee on a freezing day, or fixing a shelf no one asked you to fix, or making space for a child who won't stop talking about rainbows." Nathan glanced toward Ava, who had pressed her nose to the glass like a puppy in a bakery. He smiled. "Then yeah, I think we're doing okay." If this story touched you, we'd love to know. If you were Jessica, would you accept that coffee? Or if you were Nathan, would you have accepted that job? Tell us in the comments. Your perspective matters here. And if this love story stirred something in you, rate it from 1 to 10 below. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We share the quiet moments that remind us love can begin with something as simple as a cup of coffee.